Imagine this. You break into a sealed tomb that has not been touched for over 3,000 years. The air inside hasn't been breathed since ancient times. Golden treasures glisten in the lamplight. But suddenly, whispers spread. Anyone who disturbs the boy king will suffer a dreadful fate. This isn't just a myth. After the tomb of Tutankhamun was uncovered in 1922, a string of mysterious deaths followed. Coincidence? Or the infamous curse of the Pharaohs? If you love diving deep into history's most chilling mysteries, subscribe to Infinity now, because today, we're unsealing the story of King Tut, the curse, and the strange tragedies that followed. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter stood at the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, at the end of a long, frustrating search. For years, many believed the royal tombs had all been plundered long ago. But Carter had faith that one still remained hidden, that of the boy pharaoh Tutankhamun. After 5 years of fruitless digging, Carter's financier, Lord Carnarvon, was ready to pull the plug. Just as hope ran thin, Carter's team struck something unusual, a hidden staircase leading down into the earth. The workers cleared the steps, and at the base, a sealed doorway emerged, covered in ancient plaster and stamped with royal seals. Carter knew immediately, this was not just another tomb. This could be the untouched burial of a pharaoh. On November 26, 1922, Carter made a small hole in the door and lit a candle. His eyes widened as he glimpsed treasures beyond imagination. When Carnarvon asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter famously replied, "Yes, wonderful things." Inside, they found golden couches shaped like mythical creatures, chariots, jewelry, and deeper within, the untouched sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, the boy who ruled Egypt over 3,000 years earlier. Unlike most tombs that had been looted, Tutankhamun's burial chamber was remarkably preserved. This was the first time in modern history that the world could see the riches of an Egyptian pharaoh almost exactly as they were placed. But alongside the awe came whispers of danger. Ancient Egyptians often inscribed warnings in their tombs. Some believed Tut's tomb was no exception, that anyone who dared disturb his eternal rest would pay the ultimate price. Whether these warnings were real or imagined, what happened next seemed to fuel the legend. For as the treasures were catalogued and removed, a chilling series of deaths began. Newspapers around the world seized on the idea of a pharaoh's curse. The public was hooked. Here was a story that mixed gold, mystery, and the supernatural. What began as the greatest archaeological triumph of the 20th century was about to be overshadowed by tragedy and fear. The first death linked to the so-called curse was none other than Lord Carnarvon, the man who funded the expedition. Without his money, Tutankhamun's tomb might have remained hidden forever. In early 1923, just months after the tomb was opened, Carnarvon suffered a mosquito bite on his cheek while in Egypt. The wound became infected after he accidentally cut it shaving. Sepsis set in quickly, and within weeks, Carnarvon was dead. The world was stunned. How could the healthy aristocrat die so suddenly, right after entering Tut's tomb? Newspapers fanned the flames. The New York Times declared the mysterious death of Lord Carnarvon, and soon headlines worldwide warned of the curse of the pharaohs. One eerie detail struck many. When his body was examined, the wound on Carnarvon's cheek was said to match a mark on Tutankhamun's mummy in the exact same spot. To heighten the fear, legend spread that when Carnarvon died, all the lights in Cairo mysteriously went out. To a world primed for superstition, this was enough to confirm the curse was real. But Carnarvon wasn't the only one. Over the next decade, several people connected to the tomb's opening or study died under unusual circumstances. Among them were Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist who took X-rays of Tut's mummy and later died suddenly, and George J. Gould, an American visitor to the tomb who died shortly after from fever. In total, about a dozen people linked to the tomb died within a few years. Some passed from infections, others from accidents or illness. But to the public, this was no coincidence. It was vengeance from beyond the grave. The legend of the curse was cemented, and Tutankhamun's tomb was no longer just an archaeological wonder. It was now the setting of a supernatural horror story. The so-called Curse of the Pharaohs wasn't just a tabloid invention. Even scientists began to wonder if something sinister lurked inside Egypt's ancient tombs. Some experts proposed a rational explanation, that the tombs were sealed with dangerous molds, bacteria, or toxins. These could have thrived in the darkness for thousands of years, waiting to attack the immune systems of intruders. In fact, in the 1960s, microbiologists tested samples from mummies and tomb walls. They found deadly molds like Aspergillus flavus, which can cause lethal infections, particularly in those with weakened health. Others suggested exposure to toxic gases, such as ammonia or formaldehyde-like compounds, which could have been used in embalming and lingered in sealed chambers. Still, not everyone was convinced. Many pointed out that Howard Carter himself, the man who first entered the tomb, lived for 17 years after the discovery and died of natural causes. Other key members of the excavation team also lived long lives, seemingly unaffected by any curse. This suggested that the series of deaths might have been tragic coincidences rather than supernatural punishment. Yet, superstition was difficult to shake. Ancient Egyptians strongly believed in protecting their dead. They inscribed tombs with warnings like, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." Whether Tutankhamun's tomb actually contained such an inscription remains debated. No clear curse text was ever found inside. But for the media and the public, the idea of a mystical warning was too thrilling to let go. The curse legend also reflected Western fears of tampering with ancient powers, a theme that would later inspire countless books, movies, and horror stories. In the end, science may have debunked much of the curse, but the myth had already taken on a life of its own. Tutankhamun himself remains one of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, despite his short reign. He ascended the throne around age 9 and ruled for only a decade before dying mysteriously at about 18 or 19 years old. His death remains unsolved. Was it illness, an accident, or even assassination? CT scans of his mummy revealed a broken leg and traces of malaria, but the truth remains elusive. Ironically, in life Tutankhamun was a relatively minor ruler, overshadowed by his predecessors. Yet in death, his name became eternal because his tomb was found almost intact. The treasures from his burial, including the iconic golden death mask, stunned the world and reshaped our understanding of ancient Egypt. But alongside the wonder, the shadow of the curse persisted. Even in modern times, exhibitions of Tutankhamun's artifacts have sparked whispers of bad luck and misfortune. Some Egyptians themselves embraced the curse narrative, seeing it as proof that their ancestors' power still lingered. Others dismissed it as Western sensationalism. What cannot be denied is the cultural impact. The story of the curse has inspired everything from horror novels to blockbuster films, embedding Tutankhamun into global imagination far beyond archaeology. In a sense, the curse worked, not as a supernatural force, but as a myth that ensured no one would ever forget the boy king. To this day, millions visit museums to see Tut's treasures, still captivated by the blend of history, mystery, and a chilling sense that perhaps, just perhaps, the pharaohs still guard their secrets. So, was the curse real? Or just a coincidence dressed up in superstition? Maybe we'll never know, but the story remains one of the most haunting mysteries of history. If this story of ancient curses and golden tombs gave you chills, hit that like button and subscribe to Infinity. Here, history isn't just dates and facts, it's mystery, power, and legends that refuse to die. What do you think? Was the curse of the pharaohs real, or just media hype? Drop your theory in the comments, and remember, some doors are better left unopened.